Now, when you talk about insertions, this is another component to shape. And I would say shape as well as muscularity. That can play a really big role in the amount of time it takes for you to reach that desired look, that desired shape, that desired physique that resembles a bikini pro physique. Now, insertions for the glutes. You can have short insertions, you can have moderate insertions, you can have long insertions. You take someone like Laura Lee, Ashley Kay, their insertions are on the shorter side. You take someone like Jen Dory, like Amy Delgado, their insertions, Maureen Blanquisco, pretty sure I fucked up her last name. Sorry about that, Maureen. Love you. Those insertions are very long. You can see like they run very much lengthwise down the hamstring. Now, pros and cons to both. And this is, again, going to come down to structurally, like your bone structure and where these tie-ins sit as to whether or not this is positive or negative. And I guess I should like slap myself on the wrist because it's like, it shouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. It's really, when I say bad or when I say good, I'm talking about the relative amount of time it's going to take to maximize or to build around said structure or, predisposition, like with a tie-in, like if that's just genetically what you were given, at birth, it's like, okay, someone with shorter tie-in, they are going to have very bubbly glutes in the front post because that tie-in is going to stop very short up high on the hamstring. Someone with a longer tie-in in the front pose, that tie-in, in my case, it can run pretty deep and it can actually make that upper quad appear like it's bigger in circumference. It also comes down to how you're posing too. So understanding like the degree of hip flexion that you need in your front pose, the degree of anterior pelvic tilt to really create the most bubbly glute shelf in your front pose. And when I'm talking about glute tie-in, I'm specifically talking about glute max. But then if we're talking about glute med, this is also a consideration because you can see tiny girls, like very petite competitors, but from the back, their hips are very narrow. Even if their waist is very narrow, the amount of glute med they're going to need to create more shape. And I think Evie is a very good example of this. Like she's developed her glute med in a way. Maureen's another good example where, I guess like Maureen has a shorter torso, Evie has a longer torso, which again, good comparisons there, both relatively long tie-ins. They've done an incredible job in building out their glute med for having such, I would say, like generally not wide set hips. Like they're both very petite competitors. And I would say within that, it's like understanding, okay, how much glute med do you need relative to your glute max, relative to your natural hip size, like your ilium size. And within this, this isn't just limited to the lower body. Like we also have to talk about like quads. If your insertions for your VMO or outer quad sweep, if that is, I guess your VMO too, but if your insertions are very low, if they're very close to the patella, this is something that we might have to be a little careful in developing that quad because ultimately the more size and the more bulk we add to that knee, it's going to make your legs look thicker. If you have structurally very short femurs, if your legs are not that long, this can be something that even a little bit of quad on very short femurs, which not many, I can't really think of many competitors that have short femurs, but I would say short as opposed to long relative to torso size. We just have to understand how this might translate and even like from interior perspective to posterior, in that front pose, because you can add a lot of, I'll just say, size, bulk to that lower leg that ultimately might then return feedback to you from the judges that like, oh, you don't need any more quad or your quads are oversized, when in reality it's like you didn't have a lot of room to put on quad anyway because you didn't have high insertions. Same thing for up top. Lower lats, I would say Issa's someone, thinking like just trying to pick her physique out of my brain. She's someone that I believe has higher lat insertions and a very, like her lower lat inserts a little bit higher as opposed to like mine insert in my fucking hips. Like they're very, very low sitting lats. So within that, it's like understanding, what you need to do in terms of muscular development, what you're able to do, and what might ultimately contribute to technically the appearance of a wider waist. So within that, it's like understanding, okay, what give do you have on your waist? And for individuals who structurally have a wider rib cage, this might be a little bit harder for them. They might have more constraints that they have to work within. Relative to like the real estate, so how long their torso is, relative to the muscularity already developed in their abdominal wall, and how this presents relative to the visibility, which I know some of y'all are like, okay, so it really is completely individualized. It's ratio to ratio, and whether or not this gives you more room or enough room, and whether or not this correction ultimately takes away some of your tools, or I guess ability to develop other body parts later on. You'll hear the top coaches talk about these things, like you have to be careful with adding too much size to the wrong area, and absolutely. But I would say largely the individual who has more leeway is going to be the individual who has wider set hips, wider set clavicles, and a very narrow rib cage.